Welcome back to the channel, you guys. It is Comic Kid here again, and today's advanced review is going to be focused on Wonder Woman, The Adventures of Young Diana, Batman, The Audio Adventures one-shot, and Batman, The Imposter, which I'm sure is what brought most of you here to this video for. Now, these are the big number ones from DC this week, and when I say big number ones, I mean big number ones. Both Wonder Woman and Batman Audio Adventures were 80-page one-off specials, and they are big boys. Chonkers, thick mamas, whatever you want to call them, they are packed. Now, as always, before we get started, be sure to hit like and subscribe. I can't express how much it helps out the channel, and be sure to check out the links in the description below as well. Y'all's support has been wonderful to me over the last few years, and I know I haven't always posted super consistently, but everyone here I really appreciate, and if y'all just have extra time, check out some of the links in the description. It would go a very, very long way. Now, to start off with Batman The Audio Adventures. This one is a sort of lead up to the HBO Max podcast, which is starring Jeffrey Wright as Batman. Now, this is completely unrelated to Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson's The Batman, which also has Jeffrey Wright. This is a podcast, it's telling a separate story, and so on. Now, the Audio Adventures one-shot, the comic itself, does kind of tell an overarching story. You have Jack Ryder kind of popping up here and there. You have like a narrative that is pretty easily connected throughout, but I mean, it does focus on some smaller characters pretty well, and some side characters as well. I wouldn't really call characters like Catwoman small by any means. And so yeah, now every issue in this one shot, or every like short story in this one shot, is written by Dennis McNicholas, who is one of the writers for the actual podcast. And if he's not the writer listed, he is at the very least a co-author. And so you definitely get the feel that it's like, okay, well, if you don't like his writing style, you're not gonna like this. And overall, I felt like it was okay. I am curious to see kind of where the podcast is gonna go from here. And I mean, it's a good setup issue, I guess I'd say. I do think it's kind of written more so for a podcast type format rather than a comic book format, and so like some of the descriptions and dialogue do feel a little out of place in this medium, I guess I would say. And don't get me wrong, it's not bad by any means. I just think it's better suited, or specifically suited, for a podcast format, which is totally fine and to be expected given the issue. But like with any one-shot as well, some of the stories in there are going to be good, some of them are not as good. I did find a few in here to be interesting, not necessarily good or bad, but it's like, oh, they focused on this character who hardly anyone knows. That's kind of cool. And so yeah, if you want to skip out on it, I'd say you're fine. If you are planning on like listening to the podcast, then I'd probably say check this one out. I have no idea how relevant it is, or it is going to be to the podcast, and so if you're at all looking forward to the podcast, then I would definitely say give this a shot. It'd be worth your time. Now, to move on to The Adventures of Young Diana, I'm going to start by saying that I am definitely not the target audience for this book. I always try new Wonder Woman number ones, and I find that a lot of her stories are hit or miss for me, in my opinion. And so reading this one, it definitely looks like it's geared towards a younger audience. I wouldn't say that it's written for a younger audience by any means. Like, a lot of the dialogue and verbiage and stuff still feels very adequate and like upper reading level type stuff. But it's also not like a adults only type of Wonder Woman story by any means. And so I'd say this story would be very fitting for any Wonder Woman fan age like 7 and up probably. Now, it does focus a little bit on It's not at all like an origin story for Diana by any means, but it does focus specifically on her as a child. Even by the end of the issue, she's not like Wonder Woman or anything like that. And so it is an interesting time to focus on Diana as a kid. I feel like, at least me personally, I haven't read a whole lot of that time frame for her. And, it's kind of hard because Wonder Woman has had so many different takes on her origin over the years that it's kind of hard to know, like, exactly what happened when she was a kid or how long she was even a kid for. And so I did find the setting of the story to be rather intriguing. I also feel like it did a good job of kind of spinning the Amazons. There wasn't really anything, like, new in there, but I liked that it really focused on the history of the Amazons as well. I do feel like a lot of the book has been either directly shown or hinted at in other Wonder Woman books, but it was kind of nice to see bits of Diana's history and her origins kind of come together all in one nice, neat little one-shot. Now, where I do think the book excels at is it kind of shows the lessons Diana learns that make her into Wonder Woman. She starts off as kind of a brat in this issue, and we've seen examples of a bratty Diana before and stuff like the True Amazon, but I kind of liked how it didn't need a super harsh tragedy to kind of teach her how to be Wonder Woman in this particular story. And that's something I think Jordi Belair did a very, very good job on. So, like I said, I'm not the target audience of this book. I didn't love it. I think it's perfectly fine. If you are a fan of Wonder Woman, you'll probably enjoy this. But just because I didn't love it should not at all dissuade you from purchasing the book if you are at all intrigued. Now, last but not least is Batman the Imposter. This is the newest Black Label book from DC to spotlight Batman, and what's got so many people intrigued about this one is that it is written by co-author of the Batman script with Matt Reeves, and the author is Mattson Tomlin. And so I think people are kind of trying to get a feel for what the Batman is going to kind of look like, sound like, whatever you may say. It's a first glimpse of the movie in this comic. Now, the comic has nothing to do with the movie. The only correlation is that Mattson Tomlin is also the author of The Imposter. That said, I think Tomlin does pretty good right out of the gate. I wasn't absolutely blown away by any concepts of this, but I think it's a really, really strong start to a Batman story overall. I like the very realistic take on the character. I like kind of the side characters that they're choosing to focus on. The realism in it does make a lot of sense, and so I do think Tomlin understands Batman perfectly fine, and I am excited to see what kind of may or may not carry over from this story into the Batman. But Andrea Sorrentino's artwork is phenomenal as always. Everything is just very dark, very suitable for Batman, and I think this was an incredible start to a new Batman series, and for as oversaturated as the market may be on Batman, I definitely think this one will pique a lot of people's interests, we'll say. But essentially, a younger version of Bruce Wayne, who's maybe a year or two into his crime-fighting career as Batman, starts to have to deal with an imposter who's popped up and is a significantly darker Batman who goes around killing people. And one thing I liked about this story is how they kind of spun Jim Gordon in the GCPD. You kind of see the consequences of Batman in a more realistic form. And even if the police are for or against Batman, it's kind of interesting to see crooked and straight cops in their specific viewpoint of Batman. And so, yeah, all in all, there's not a whole lot of Batman in this book, and one thing I also liked is you're not ever quite sure if you're seeing Batman or the imposter version of him, especially by the end in the Ratcatcher scene. Those who know it will know what I'm talking about. And so, yeah, I'm certainly excited to see where the series goes from here, and I believe it's only going to be a 3-parter. It might be a 4, but I'm pretty sure it's just 3, and so yeah, I will happily continue reading this series. Of the ones I've read so far, this is probably my favorite, and I'm hoping you guys will enjoy it just as much as I did. But that is everything that I have for y'all today. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and be sure to check out the links down below as well. But thank you guys again so much for watching, and I will see y'all again real soon.